New research has broadened archaeologists' understanding of an ancient civilization they're calling Old Europe. It was highly developed and predates even ancient Greece and Rome. John, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you.
So, John, it seems that before there was ancient Greece and ancient Rome, there was an ancient civilization somewhere in what we now know as Europe that was highly developed. Talk about the characteristics of that civilization.
The archaeologists are calling it Old Europe because it preceded Greece, Rome, and all of the other civilizations that are better known. This one is in the area that is now present-day Bulgaria, Romania, and Moldova, and along the Black Sea, and the Lower Danube River Valley, and into the Balkan hills. So it's a rather expansive area, and the people entered there from Greece. They brought along agriculture, and we're talking about 5,000 B.C.
Mm-hmm. And about how many people?
Well, I don't think they really know. But some of the evidence for some of the towns, there's one site that looks to be about 800 acres and may have had 10,000 people. So these were not inconsequential settlements.
What were some of the characteristics of this civilization?
First of all, they were farmers.
Do you know what they grew?
They brought along barley and wheat seeds. They also brought along domesticated cattle and sheep. So it was a rather elementary farming system. But they became masters of the new technology of their day, which was copper smelting, large-scale copper smelting. There was copper ore in the Balkan hills, and they developed the techniques for high heat smelting to extract pure copper from the ore. From this, they cast axes and hammered knives and also made ornaments. They also seem to have been involved in long-distance trading with links into the rest of Europe, also into the Eurasian steppes.
John, let me ask you about the copper smelting. I mean, what was the source of heat high enough to melt copper?
They had gradually learned through ceramics how to get high heats, and over time they just started escalating that, and I guess at some point they must have been able to reach several thousand degrees.
Is that surprising that people at that time could achieve that?
Well, it was known that about this time, through parts of Europe as well as the Middle East, that you were beginning to have copper. Mm-hmm. After the Stone Age, you had a brief Copper Age before you entered the Bronze Age and Iron Age. I think the thing that was distinctive about these people is that they had a large-scale copper industry.
Mm-hmm. How did this – I guess my question is twofold. I mean, how did this civilization go unknown until now, number one, and how was it discovered?
In terms of modern archaeology, it was unknown until the early 20th century. And even then, all they were finding were some traces of some copper goods. It was known that there were some people there about 6,200 BC. It was known that there were settlements scattered through these three countries, Bulgaria, Romania, and Moldova, related through trade and cultural affinities. But we didn't know that. And then when local archaeologists began finding more and more things and starting to find some graves, by that time these countries were behind the Iron Curtain. They had no contacts with the West. They were not allowed contacts with the West. Mm-hmm. Therefore, our archaeologists didn't know what their archaeologists were doing. And it just sort of remained that way until in 1972, the Bulgarians discovered at Varna, which is on the Black Sea, they discovered a huge cemetery. They found the first graves, and then through the 70s and the 80s, they kept finding more and more graves. And this is when they discovered that these people were interesting. Mm-hmm. They were not just simple farmers. They were skilled. They were skilled. The graves at Varna are described as the largest known collections of gold up to that time. And this indicated that this culture wasn't just a very simple egalitarian culture. It had hierarchy.
And what became of this civilization? It died out in some way, or how?
Well, they don't know. They know that by 3500 BC, it became virtually extinct as a really cohesive culture. It was sort of declining for about 500 years before that. One of the most interesting hypotheses is that people from the steppes of Russia and Ukraine, once they developed horseback riding, they sort of rode in and took over.
Right. My last question for you, John. There's an exhibit of some of the artifacts from this era.
Yes, the Institute for the Study of the Ancient World, which is an institute of New York University. The exhibit is there on East 84th Street. It's two large galleries. There are about 250 artifacts, some of the gold from the graves at Varna, a lot of figurines, clay figurines of mostly women. They had a passion for forming small miniature clay women. This culture was quite advanced in visual language. That is, they had a lot of large, decorated, multicolored pots, pans. Some of them seemed to be involved in rather decorative sort of in-home dining rituals.